Bozzzton versus Bunnyhoppor is about to get underway, and before we get into that one, we need to talk about their protection and ban phase. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole Conquest thing is the protect part of it. Like, I love that they're in multi-class formats right now, but they still get a chance to strut their stuff if they think a deck is just absolutely the best deck out there right now. That was one of the things that, for me, was always a little bit uneasy about the previous Conquest, was that no matter what the best deck was, you had the option of taking it away.
Yeah, and I think it also brings some of that specialist flavor into the mix, where if there is a specialist for a given deck, they can still have that in their lineup and then put that Divine Shield on it. It can't be taken away from them with the ban. We still get to see players build up that class identity and really come out as class specialists. So I think potentially we have kind of a best of both worlds scenario going down.
Indeed. So we can go ahead and take a look at that protection and ban phase and see what ends up happening here. Bozzzton has chosen to protect his rogue. It's funny, we were just talking about this. I did not know that that was going to be the case coming into this one. He's not playing the super aggressive rogue deck. He's more on tempo rogue than anything else, and you can see that Bunnyhoppor has chosen to ban away his mage afterwards, and for Bunnyhoppor, he's protected his warrior for the second time in a row, and Bozzzton showing a lot of respect for rogue, banning it out of Bunnyhoppor's lineup. Yeah,
it's a very interesting choice, and it's something that we'll have to get back used to. It's another thing that I do love about the format. You know, any format that does have an additional phase like this, anytime there is some kind of pick ban phase, it does give more decisions over to the players. It does give more talking points to us to be able to break down things that are going on. So it'll be interesting to see as time goes on, especially after the nerfs, how that readjusts people's thinkings in which decks they're looking to target.
Yeah, and so Bozzzton yesterday was so close to closing a game versus Mage with his rogue against Psycho, and it fell just short at the end, like so very short. And, you know, you could debate, I think, some of his choices at the end of that game, but ultimately it was Mage doing Mage things towards the end that won. And I'm not talking about like Pocket Galaxy things. The Pocket Galaxy actually had a fairly irrelevant outcome in the pan-out of that particular game.
Right.
What it really did was discount an acidic Swamp Ooze by 1 mana, so that Psycho could generate a swing turn. It was just the Mage deck in general that gave Bozzzton trouble, and so that's one of the things that I have my eye on in this one, is how can the tempo of Tempo Rogue stack up versus what an Aggro Rogue's damage can do in a matchup like that. That same hand from Psycho yesterday would have died to an Aggro Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, very much so, because Bozzzton was sat in a position where he had Myras in hand, but it was a little bit of a clunky Myras situation. But with the aggro deck, he would have played Myras and picked up Hook Scimitars and Eviscerates and everything else. Bozzzton only has like one copy of Eviscerate and a couple of South Sea deckhands in terms of direct damage in his deck. Of course, on top of Leroy, which is the ever-present. So it is a lot more difficult to just kind of scam those games out of nowhere. But we'll cross the Rogue Bridge when we come to it, because for now, we have the Highlander Hunter going up against Bunnyhoppor's protected Control Warrior.
Kind of an interesting thing to start with here, too, that Bozzzton chooses to protect his Rogue, ban out Bunnyhoppor's Rogue, and then start with Hunter. Does that feel interesting to you at all?
It does. I mean, I don't really have any insight into where the mindset is with that, because I think it's something that we will need to have more experience with the format to really start picking those things apart. But I think I don't have hard statistics on this, but I think if we go back through the first 2 days, protected bans have had a statistical favoring in being the first deck that players have then queued straight afterwards.
Gonna have to do that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I'm curious if there's any mind game scenarios available there. Like, what if Bozzzton didn't play Rogue at all this series?
Right.
It's a best of 3.
Just protect a deck and then don't play
Seriously,
it.
like, this is best of 3 that we're playing in Grandmasters. And so what that means is when you have 4 decks, that one of them can technically be omit from play. Like, you could see all 3 different decks in play in one series, because a player could play their first deck, win a game, play their second deck, lose that game, and then play their third deck in the third game of that series.
Right.
So the fact that you could see a player use 1, 2, or 3 of their decks in a best of 3 series, that's very interesting to me.
It does make some form of like logical sense that you would see the protected deck being played sooner, just because, you know, if you draw like a Conquest like matchup chart as to which of your deck has the most favorable matchups, that's likely to be the deck you've protected, right? Because that's why you've protected it. So if you're, you know, looking for just playing out the highest win rate deck on average first, if that's your method, then it makes sense it's going to end up being the protected one. But again, we will see as time goes on.
Bunnyhoppor with a fantastic start here. Talking about his Control Warrior deck for a second, he has brought the full package of 2-ofs, aside from Plague of Wrath. That's the only card that's a 1-of in the deck, and that's due to the fact that he could not make it a 2-of if he wanted to include the legendaries that he's had in his deck. At the top end, we're looking at Archivist Elysiana, 2 Tomb Wardens, and our Megadillo. And he's also got the Frightened Flunkies and the Restless Mummies that are tagged into this one. The rest of that deck, it's 2 ofs. I know you're a big fan of the 2 ofs.
I'm a huge fan of the 2 ofs, yep. 2 copies of everything plus legendaries. That is how I try to build a deck if I can. And if I can't, I get very sad about it and play a different deck where I can. Speaking of getting very sad about it, yep, right on cue. I don't think anyone enjoys Eternium Rover Snip Snap Curve against Control Warrior. And this is perhaps the most frustrating experience of playing against Control Warrior, because they have so much late game just packed into that one card of Dr. Boom Mad Genius. They can play so smooth and light with the rest of their curve that a lot of the time, when they play up against an aggro deck, an outright aggro deck, they're playing more 1-drops in their deck than the aggro deck that they're facing against us, which is kind of a ridiculous scenario to be in, especially when those 1-drops are of the quality of Eternium Rover and Town Crier, 2 of the best 1-drops in the game right now.
Yeah, I think the wince that you saw on Bozzzton's side when that Snip Snap came down is that's very adequate. I feel like Bozzzton has been facing up against some of the toughest openings of anyone in Grandmasters so far.
Yeah.
Talking about his Highlander Hunter deck for a second, Explosive Trap is included in his package of secrets. That is something that has not been very common across the board in Grandmasters, it seemed like, at least for Europe anyway. As far as any of the tech choices are concerned, he's opted to not go for Hunter's Pack in his variation of it, a choice that I am not particularly fond of. I think that in the matchups where Highlander Hunter is going to shine and show its strengths, that card generation is very important as you move through.
No tune can hold me.
Yeah, we've certainly seen so far, just a very small sample size, that the decks without Hunter's Pack have been struggling with staying high on resources against the decks like Control Warrior. Of course, yeah, it's only a single copy of Hunter's Pack. You might ask how much of a difference that can make, but when you have Zul'jin in your deck as well, which then doubles up on that afterwards, it can be a huge, huge swing in resources.
Yeah, you're looking at turning 1 card into 3 cards, so that's a +2, and then the Zul'jin will cast it again, and that's 5 cards that you're going to generate extra from 1 card simply being in your deck.
Yeah. You know, never mind that one of those cards then ends up being a weapon, which can potentially generate huge card advantage or damage for you as well, depending on which way you're looking at going with it.
To my side.
It's also just range as well. You know, having something that's outside of the realm of expectation from your opponent. Right. I think Bozzzton is trying to represent that as an explosive trap.
Oof.
No tune can hold me.
I would sooner concede than trade a Huffer.
Well, what does attack and face with it do? Yeah,
It deals 4.
So this is an interesting spot in the game, is does Bunnyhoppor believe that that's an explosive trap? It being an open decklist format, he knows that it's there. And even if it weren't an open decklist format, Bunnyhopper's the kind of player who will take into account that this really looks like an explosive trap setup.
Right.
I think Bozzzton has found the perfect spot to sell this really well. And so for Bunnyhoppor, this attack here is crucial. If he does not make it, that buys Bozzzton a ton of undeserved time.
It's even more a looming prospect of the explosive trap, because you don't really want to give extra Eaglehorn bow charges over to your opponent by proccing any of these traps. But making a play here that does not proc either of these 2 unknown Hunter secrets is very, very difficult to do. So I think you may have to resign yourself to just giving up Eaglehorn bow charges to the opponent, unless you just absolutely pass the turn.
Wow.
Yep, that's about the only play you can make.
Bozzzton may have gotten himself much needed extra time with that brilliant bluff. I think that, you know, secrets are one of the obvious ways that you can bluff in the game. But in this spot, it was paramount to him being in this one. If that was not successful, there was no way he was going to win.
Right. And you could kind of see that being crystallized as well by the Zul'jin draw. If he takes another, 6 damage there from the board, there's pretty little hope that he's going to find his way to a Zul'jin that digs himself out of the game. But now with the extra turn granted,
and that attack not being, that secret not being Snake Trap either, I think is going to further solidify that idea in Bunnyhoppor's mind. Ah, yes, that is explosive trap. Like, that possibility is being confirmed as these attacks go through. But the damage, or I guess the inverse of that, has been done.
yes, There goes the pressure plate. That was the first secret that was played. That's not the explosive trap bluff secret, if you want to keep track of that.
I'm so glad.
So despite facing off against the Dr. Boom Mad Genius on coin 6, I think Bozzzton's got some fighting power here.
Some is the right amount.
This scenario is where I'm concerned that there's no card generation in the deck.
Right.
He's got the copy of Unleash the Hounds. He's got a copy of Marked Shot. That Marked Shot and the Zephyrus that are in there, I think are going to have to pull some major weight this game if he's going to win.
Yeah, crucially, he does have the Unleash the Beast, though, in hand and playable and having been played, which is perhaps the best card in terms of just trying to use Zul'jin as a win condition, because it's board tempo, it's removal, it leaves threats on the board, and it gives you resources in hand after all of that as well. It's just an amazing all-in-one package when Zul'jin comes down. So finding that particular one-of from his deck and getting it all played before Zul'jin is at least a big check mark in the positive.
Stack him up or knock him down.
Bozzzton decides to split, which I think is pretty reasonable here. I think with 7 mana only available, there's no 4-path option for Bunnyhoppor to be able to completely sweep this away. It's pretty decent timing just to go for the 2 separate targets.
Maximize the Ziliax face plan.
Yep.
Okay, then.
Huge stack of armor for Bunnyhoppor as well, so stacking up would play into a shield slam, especially with that Microbot's hero power being available. It would take care of a huge amount of his board.
Yeah, good call.
Light the fuses!
Ding. Yeah, Bunnyhoppor knows he got got.
Yeah, gets the news that he missed 6 damage earlier in the game.
Possibly more than that as well. You know, the chip on the next turn.
Yeah.
You know, would he have traded in that scenario?
Right.
Oh, I love that fuse.
Not only that, but he lost tempo as well.
Finally, Bozzzton has the license to start pushing some damage now.
How best to do it? You know, I was thinking this Unleash the Hounds looked pretty prime this turn. Just wipe out the 1/1s and start pushing forward.
Yep.
I wonder.
Attach that Ziliax. Critata!
Sorry, is that the noise that Magnetic Ziliax makes?
That's the noise you make as you're attacking with it.
Oh.
See, watch. This is Bozzzton. Listen to Bozzzton. Ratata! All right, we're back. We got a good listening to Bozzzton right there.
Trinity Series technology. We have it. We have it, finally. Bozzzton thinking about the swing here. It's actually something that I've really been on a high horse for a very long time, is how players don't value the second to last charge of Eaglehorn Bow highly enough.
Yeah.
Because the second to last charge is the one you can swing very freely. So if there's like a must-kill minion that comes down on the opposing side of the board, the second to last charge is the one that you want to swing at it. Because as long as you still have that 1 charge remaining afterwards, you can build it back up with secrets.
Yeah.
If you go down to your last charge all the time, and then suddenly a must-kill target comes on the board that you want to swing with your weapon, that expends your weapon, and you then don't have that ability to stack the charges back up with secrets. So I like that Bozzzton took the time just to think that over, but I do still agree with the decision. Push the 3. No secrets in hand. He's already played a few. He needs to start getting this damage rolling through.
You know, I want to give a shout out to America's Grandmasters Zelay. On your comment there. I learned that years ago from watching him, where so often he would play a very aggressive hunter decks. He would set a Eaglehorn Bow and just say go.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that looks just looks strange. And then what I realized is, wait, he's got plenty of time to swing this Eaglehorn Bow. He's saving it in case he needs to buy tempo with it.
Yep.
For Bozzzton, the push of the damage is a conclusion that Shield Slam could be a relevant factor that turn, and he wanted to shut that off. So now with the Tiamat drawn, that looks like it multi-shots 2/2 Mordens to me.
It sure does.
Can you get better, though?
Squeeze in the hero power as well with the Tiamat. You're pushing another 9, most likely holding on to the bow in that case. You're putting it down to 21. Zul'jin coming down behind that. But you probably want to get that Unleash the Beast played, which might be where Bozton's head is thinking. Yeah, the Deadly Shot as well. So using those 2 cards this turn instead, depending on whether Bozzzton feels like he wants to go for a more aggressive Zul'jin, is something worth thinking about. And yeah, you can see the indecision on Bozzzton's face. I don't think there's any great rush to be Zul'jining on curve. So personally, I am favoring the Tiamat this turn. But I can't fault this. Point it out as a very reasonable concern.
Yeah, it does play for harder tempo here, and that's where Boston's head is at. I think I still would have favored the Tiamat for the reason of what we were talking about yesterday, where we saw just a Restless Mummy answer a 4-5, and then a push of a little bit of damage.
Right.
It's when you take that lead and your opponent hasn't contested it, oftentimes it's so easy to break it down on a simple measure, and you blow up their things, you attack them in the face. You don't need to change the board state because it's shown that it's already been a problem. So you get to chip away with the hero power in that instance, you get to maintain the deadly shot and the Unleash the Beast for the next turn, and sure, the Tiamat's gone, but you get a really solid turn in the face of that. So a lot of it boils down to how important that tempo is for Bozzzton later on.
Dynamatic here, guaranteed snipe on the 5-2.
Bad looking turn though. I mean, it doesn't really do anything.
It's ugly. Facing down 7 more on the other side.
That Snip Snap's running amok.
But Bunnyhoppor absolutely not willing to use his Brawl there on a board that is just going to refill with those Snip Snap tokens afterwards anyway.
And as you approach the Warpath turns, that's where Rat Trap starts to gain more value.
Very true.
Bozzzton hasn't seen it so far. There's been no setup for it either. So that Rat Trap would be set in anticipation of that draw. Also, a Mega Assembly.
Yeah. A Mega Assembly and Rat Trap do have some relevance towards each other. I don't know how much Bozzzton does feel like he needs to play around Warpath here, because he does have a 5-5 Divine Shield on board, which is essentially needs 6 procs of Warpath to be able to take care of, so that's not happening. He's just going to jam the Zul'jin. I think this is what his play last turn kind of indicated. Just wants to push.
It's right into the Kaboom, which opens up that Plague of Wrath that's sitting in Bunnyhoppor's hand.
It's fair. Ooh, the Hopper.
Not trading this time.
It's a green Hopper as well. That means he's getting to attack. Unleash the Hounds. Misses out on that one Hound that he could have got. The sequencing was different. But it's a very, very nice push on the board. It's a decent refill with that extra Unleash the Beast in hand. Problem is, as you said, Plague of Wrath is available, but there's a Divine Shield that needs to be dealt with as well on top of all of that.
If you can't deal with it with that Eternity Rover, there's snipe and play.
Yep. So Bozzzton's saying, yeah, you know what? Go ahead and brawl me.
It could, in theory, deal with it, actually. If you play it, it gives you 2 armor and you get to Shield Slam.
Oof. That is very true. It's a good catch. But it's a whole ton of resources to be dumping into clearing this one board.
You got to do something.
Yeah.
I guess one of the issues is then you hand a charge over to the Eaglehorn Bow. You're guaranteed taking 5.
There it is. Bunny, of course, knows what these secrets are. He knows it's Snipe Pressure Plate. Yeah. Going for the line that Admirable spotted.
It's a bit of the Omega Assembly as well.
Job done.
Still charge given to the bow, still 2 damage on the board. He knows there's refill to come. Speaking of refill, still a few secrets left remaining in the deck. Haven't seen the snake yet, haven't seen the explosive.
Quite a few, actually. Explosive, Freezing Trap, Snake Trap.
Yep.
Get to thin out 3 cards in the deck with that Subject 9. Get closer to that Dino Tamer brand.
Zephyrus. All kinds of hard, nice options that you can use to finish out this game.
Savannah Highmane in the deck.
Yeah.
So step 1, attack with your damage. What are they at? Helps you visualize.
So does Bozzzton want to make the most aggressive play he can this turn on the board? Just max stats, say go? Or does he want to go for that deck thinning strategy to try and give himself that top deck more often?
It's an interesting prospect because when your opponent has the Discover a Mech hero power, I feel like that's the time to pressure your opponent as much as you can. I feel like that's the one turn where that 2 mana occupies something of their turn, and if you apply maximum pressure, you perhaps can get them to forego that hero power because they have to spend their mana answering the board.
Right.
So for Bunnyhoppor, it looks like he will have to forego that unless he wanted to use double Omega Devastator this turn. And so that's a big pickup, I think, that he just got. My head went towards the Vicious Scrap Hound Replicating Menace to be able to restore armor and then rush in the rest of the 1/1s.
Then.
I mean, here's the biggest problem. Bozzzton just has 8 from hand next turn. So
3
Bunny,
from Drinker, 2 from Hero Power, 3 from Eagle Hornbow.
yep, so Bunny has to wipe this entire board or gain health.
This would be a good
Or
time for a
ideally,
master
both.
plan.
What if the missile launcher actually could get anything done here?
It was an interesting pick at the time that he took it. He was really not happy with the selections he was given, it looked like. He took it over a Beryllium Nullifier. It wasn't a great-looking pile of cards in the situation that he was in.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Ever seen someone have to devastate a shield?
That was the play with the double Devastator line as well, right? Just double Devastator the Tiamat and trade into the 1/1s.
Yeah, the idea there is he has to wipe off the shield with the Omega Devastator, or else he doesn't get the armor generation from the Vicious Scrap Hound. It would attack into a Divine Shield for 0. You also want the minion to die so that you can wipe out the remaining 1/1s in play.
It's a big turn from Bunnyhoppor, though. It's a real corner turner. He now has board. He's relatively secure at 14. Problem is, playing against Hunter, they have the ability to whittle that 14 down. If you don't set up a very fast race for yourself, Hunter is going to be able to just chip away, get you in range for kill command, get you in range for Life Drinker.
And so you look back at the tempo that Bozzzton had generated from that Zul'jin, and I actually think it was very important this game.
It's possible. Depends on how much value he would have got off of that Rat Trap. It's kind of unquantifiable in that sense, where if he'd have gone for a Rat Trap turn before the Zul'jin and he did get a 6/6 off it at some point, and then the Zul'jin comes down and there's another 6/6 in the Zul'jin, like you can definitely argue that he'd be in a better position, but it's unknowable, like what would have happened with that Rat Trap. As you mentioned, it was a very good turn for the Rat because of Warpath possibilities, because of Omega Assembly possibilities, various things that can make Bunny want to play 3 cards. It was a close call for Bozzzton, and you saw that close call being kind of set up on the turn before, where he really, really struggled to decide between the Tiamat play and the Deadly Shot, Unleash the Beast play. Went with the Deadly Shot, Unleash the Beast play, which did very heavily indicate that he was going for a fast tempo Zul'jin, and he followed through on the line. I think that's, honestly, it's the most you can ask, is that someone sees a line, commits to it, stays consistent with their thinking, and Bozzzton certainly did that.
And so for Bunnyhoppor, sniffing out this secret is, I think, pretty important this turn. Like, it could very easily be a snake trap. And so now that he's received word it's not, he knows that is exactly Rat Trap at this point, or Explosive Trap. It's one of those two.
Yep.
And so what that means is you want to play it just a straight-up tempo game onto the board. You want to blow up as much stuff as you can and get set up to swing this back around as soon as that time comes. And that means under development.
But once again, all the secrets being up are incredibly scary. Attacking into that explosive trap, you lose so much of your board that can be used to trade other stuff off, and you also, again, hand over that crucial second charge to the Eagle Horn bow. Bunny's just between a rock and a hard place right now. He needs to be able to attack with minions so he can race the hero power and the natural damage that Hunter has in the deck, but he's not able to for fear of proccing these secrets, which gives even more damage over to Bozzzton.
Just watch that Elysiana just rot in hand the whole game.
Yeah. Such a liability of a card in so many matchups, but just kind of essential to have in your deck for some.
I'm waiting for the turn that Bunnyhoppor gets a Blast Shield. You know, that's what Bozzzton, I think, is fearing more than anything. The fact that he's lost that momentum that he had. He knows that he's got to start chipping away.
Ooh. It's not a blast shield, but it's the next best thing. Curious about the snake trap last turn from Bozzzton over the explosive.
Yeah, I think he just wanted to ensure that he could get an Eagle Horn bow charge. Uh-oh. That already attacked? That Mega Devastator already attacked? It did.
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay.
Well, he got his wish. He's got all the charges now.
Yeah, I mean, that's 6 extra damage that just got loaded up in the next 2 turns.
But it only just about counteracts that shield block the Bunnyhoppor dropped this turn.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Also look at the Tomb Warden from Bunnyhoppor. It's almost certainly slated for next turn.
Yep.
He's debating between attaching the missile launcher and using the hero power. And I think that he's coming to the right conclusion here, where just the damage on himself, even if it's just 1 at a time, is so costly.
Right. Oh, kill command picked up for Bozzzton.
So he's got 5 connecting this turn. And then he can set explosive trap. That drops Bunnyhoppor to 9. The Tomb Warden would then hit. And then what do you respond with?
Yeah.
This gonna hurt.
Just keep chipping away at face and hope to get him before they find a way to restore their health.
If Unleash the Beast is in play, does that set up any kind of niche lethal situations against the Tomb Warden? I don't think so. The Tomb Wardens would rush in and take care of the 5/5 on their terms anyway, so it would even kind of devalue the Spellbreaker in a sense to have that 5/5 in play against specifically Tomb Warden. Of course, Bozzzton not looking at a face-up hand of cards over on Bunnyhoppor's side, so he doesn't really know what he's playing against here. He does know that the Tomb Wardens are a distinct possibility that he has to play around. I don't think you can fault this line though. Just max damage plus max stats. Just get it done.
Yeah, I think this is good.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think it's good is because Bunnyhoppor is so apt to use, if he has Tomb Warden, he's so apt to use the 1/1 to do it. So then you get the Spellbreaker full 1, the other one's set up to die.
That's true, yeah. When I was talking about that, I didn't really factor in the fact that the 5/5 itself trades into a 1/1 because it has rush, and of course it does. It does change the little breakpoints, just a small amount.
Bozzzton knows there's a lot of draws in his deck that can end the game if Bunnyhoppor can't protect himself.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Still a copy of Tracking in the deck too.
Yikes. Tracking, Zephyrus, and Dino Tamer Bran all still remaining in the deck.
Card generation with Barth Shot. Savannah Highmane's still there.
Highmane as well, a card that you've got to think is brought into the lineup specifically with Bozton's game plan that we saw, leaving Warrior up, banning out Rogue. You can play a slower card that's super vulnerable if he plays against a Rogue that's playing Sap because he wants to leave up Warrior and ban Rogue. And that is the worst card.
His cards are so weighted
remaining
towards
in his deck.
Great and bad though. So there's a Secret Keeper, a Spring Paw, a Sunreaver Spy, but then there's also the Zephyrus, the March Shot, the Savannah Highmane, the Dino Tamer brand. Like
the Houndmaster Shore.
It's like his draws are so polarized.
Yeah.
And so in this spot, I think that Bozton's going to land on Hero Power hitting a Tomb Warden for this purpose of getting through that Eagle Horn bow charge. You can turn the 2 damage into 3 damage instead.
Exactly right. And the added benefit of having the 4/3 on board at the same time.
And so he's also going to set the freezing trap to try and bait Bunnyhoppor into occupying that mana on Tomb Warden, and just hoping that he replays the Tomb Warden. And what that would do is it means that a beast can end the game very easily for Bozzzton.
Yep.
No blast shields for Bunnyhoppor off this Dr. Boom. It's been in play since turn 6.
Razor thin margins on both sides, and I think both players will have you know, reasonably justified cases in saying that they've been unlucky so far. Bozzzton with having all of those power cards packed into the bottom of his deck alongside the tracking to find them. Bunnyhoppor just not finding any blast shields off his Blastmaster Boom up until this point. Been in place since turn 6. Reasonable that he would have seen 2 of them by now, which means he would be at 20 as opposed to 6.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, Bunnyhopper's opener was just sick.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Bozzzton had a good pan out for his. It's like a lot of things have gone both players' ways, but there's been crucial things that have not gone either player's way as well. And I think that's what's created this super tense endgame right now.
Yeah.
If Bunnyhoppor knows if he doesn't defend himself, he's dead.
But you can kind of see the effect of what Admirable was talking about earlier as well, is that Bozzzton is kind of on this top deck and a prayer kind of situation because of some of the lack of resource generation in his hand. He's just sat on 1 card, just hoping that he draws heat off the top.
And nearly had to play for tempo, and it got him there. That was a very well-played game from Bozzzton, and this was all, I think, critically possible because of his secret bluff of representing Explosive Trap in the attacks that he had made. He made attacks that could have very easily just given Bunnyhoppor a snowball opportunity if he had called out that Explosive Trap and said, you know what, I don't think that's what it is, I'm just going to attack your face. That game, I think, stays massively in Bunnyhoppor's favor from a tempo perspective, where instead of playing defense and waiting, he just goes full steam ahead, and Bozzzton gets pushed out of the game in that regard.
Yeah, and it's a very important matchup for Bozzzton as well, because he had probably what we call a disappointing season in Season 1. I think any player that ends up with the negative record in the season will be disappointed in what he had, and Bozzzton had a 5-9 record in Season 1, and then kicked off in the opener and had picked up a 0-2 in his first game of Season 2 as well, which you don't want to be like sliding back down that slippery slope again. So this is a very, very important matchup for him to get a win on the board nice and early.
Yeah, and I think done in a very impressive fashion as well. Again, that Explosive Trap bluff, I cannot stress how important I think that was to that particular game. So we're going to a break. When we come back, we're going to find out if Bunnyhoppor can bounce back and tie up the score here, or if Bozzzton's going to get himself a 2-0 in week number 1. Stay tuned. More Hearthstone Grandmasters coming up.
My name is Sam Braithwaite, and I'm the Senior Global Franchise Lead for Hearthstone Esports. This event was especially cool because it takes place right after the brand new expansion, Rise of Shadows. Historically in Hearthstone Esports, we do our big events like this towards the end of an expansion cycle, but we really wanted to shake things up and really showcase that not only is the world champion the person who can pilot the best decks, but also the person who, when presented with a brand new game, can put together the best decks leading into the world championship. Cheers to you guys, the sold-out crowd here for the HCT 2019 World Championship.
Welcome back to 2019 HCT World Championship.
We've had a lot of fun games, and we're looking forward to the grand finals. Showdown. Viper versus Hunter Ace. Only one can be the champion. Oh, come on!
Alex, match be dead.
Wacko pick a Vix coming out from Hunter Ace.
It's now or never. Archvillain Rafar.
Okay! In a completely solved game, Hunter Ace finds a way to maximize his chances. It's been a wonderful journey throughout the past few years of the Hearthstone Championship Tour, where stars were made and dreams came true.
Hello everyone, I'm Pavel. I didn't think too much about the username. I just wanted something simple and recognizable, so I thought that my name is perfect because I like my name. I'm looking forward to play and compete against one of the best players in the world. Most of them are my friends. I'm excited about the opportunity to qualify for the global finals. I wouldn't call myself a unique player. I just think that everyone can achieve good results if you work hard and play a lot of Hearthstone. My favorite memory of Hearthstone Esports is definitely when I won a World Championship in 2016 and just took a trophy. I was just overwhelmed. One of the things that I like outside of Hearthstone gaming is to go on the nature trips, for example, go hiking or do a picnic or something. It feels really good to be in the Grandmaster League and be alongside with one of the best players in the world. I'm still a really good player. I'm looking forward to playing Grandmaster and show everyone there's no any other player who is better than me.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters Season 2, and we are in Super Sunday of our European region. And that's Admirable, and I'm joined by Sottle. And Sottle, we just saw a heck of a game number 1, where Bozzzton was able to take the lead here over Bunnyhoppor in this one. And I'm looking forward to see what he can do next, because I think it's very likely he's going to have to go up against this protected warrior again.
I think that is most likely indeed. Also want to give a shout out while we were having the Hunter's Pack debate. I think you've got to present the counter argument as well, that if you kill your opponent with the last card that you have in hand, you've built your deck perfectly in terms of resource generation.
0 blast shields, okay? 0 blast shields.
Weren't you the one saying that both players kind of had equal ups and downs and it came out in the wash?
True story, but you got to be prepared for when they do hit blast shields.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a debate that will rage on in the coming weeks. I know it's something that Admirable has brought up multiple times, both on and off camera to me. So we'll keep an eye on that one for sure.
Yeah, indeed, so I'm looking forward to it. Got word that Bozzzton is going to be going with his Rogue, which he protected in this series, and Bunnyhoppor is indeed going with Warrior in this next game. And so for Bunnyhoppor, he's going to have to pick up 2 straight games here. Bozzzton's Rogue deck is built quite interestingly to me, whereas 2 copies of Fairy Dragon, doesn't have the Zephyrus for the endgame after the Myra's Unstable Element.
Right.
And the burn is pretty limited in here. 2 copies of Deadly Poison, 2 copies of South Sea Deckhand, 1 copy of Eviscerate, and the 1 copy of Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, so the Zephyrus inclusion is much more common in the Hooked Scimitar sort of outright aggro version of the deck, because that just makes a lot more sense. If you play Myras, you build up a hand full of Leroys and Eviscerates and Hooked Scimitars, and suddenly you just need Zephyrus to just be that pitch hitter for you. If you just needs to solve a problem that your deck can't deal with, like a big wall of taunts from a Conjurer's Calling, Master Spell, you're dead. You know, that little bit of extra damage that you didn't get off your Myra as well, there's a fireball for you, buddy. You know, all that good stuff. It makes more sense when you have that kind of linear game plan of count to 30, kill your opponent as quickly as possible.
Being able to Shadow Step a Zephyrus at the end. Woo!
Yeah, I don't think we've mentioned it, but yes, in case you aren't aware, bounce effects, Youthful Brewmaster, and Shadow Steps are explicitly hard-coded banned from the Zephyrus pool. It will never offer them. It will never offer a way to replay itself for somewhat obvious reasons. I think you can probably figure it out if you think hard about it. Technically, if Shadow Step was available, Shadow Step is always one of the 3 most perfect cards. That's the best way to look at it, because you can just get a completely free rebuy of 3 new cards with it, which means Shadow Step is always perfect in that scenario, so they've just chosen to eliminate it from proceedings.
Ancient Brewmaster as well, honorable mention. I feel like Zephyrus is the reason we don't have Banish anymore. Also, it just didn't make any sense in Rogue.
Zephyrus, you're why we can't have nice things.
Well, he gives you some pretty nice stuff.
He does. He's a pro.
Something that's important, though, is that Bozzzton's just not included Shadow Step in his Tempo Rogue.
Right.
I find that a very peculiar decision. You know, we are in a very different metagame where you're not having to battle against a bunch of other rogues playing a ton of 1/1s. So Shadow Stepping an Evil Miscreant, not nearly as good. You know, he's relying pretty much purely on Waggle Pick to rebuy something important later in the game.
Yeah,
But-
and it's also just goes some way to further eliminate that possibility of dead draws from Rogue, because it's always something that the Rogue class has had to carry with them as a burden, is that you have all these incredibly powerful cards that work as combo activators or combo tools. You know, the Shadow Steps, the Backstabs, the Preparations, all of these kind of things. But the more of them you have in your deck, the more you open yourself up to potential dead draws. So in that case, yeah, we're seeing Preparation go out because of the nerf mostly, but if you can then find a way to get a nice streamlined deck that doesn't have Shadow Step in it as well, well, you're drawing tempo cards a lot more often. You're drawing effective minions, things that you can play on curve. You don't get one of those classic Rogue, you know, prep coin concede hands as often because you don't have as many potentially dead cards.
Indeed. Apologize for the spectator issues. Thank you for being patient with us. 1-2 matched by 1-2. And we're back underway. Generous
It's
Mummy.
there again!
The Mummy.
Why? Every game.
When it goes 3-0 here, I'm going to demand you apologize. You don't have to agree to that. I just told you I will demand it if it goes 3-0 here. I didn't even say if. I said when.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that confident.
Just deciding whether I'm going to acquiesce to that demand or not.
I'm telling you, I thought it was garbage too. I truly, truly did.
You were right the first time.
I haven't been right yet. I've actually never seen someone lose if they've played a Generous Mummy.
I've never been right in my life.
That 0-2 is awfully peculiar if you're in Boston spot.
Yep. Wow, why would my opponent play some sort of mech base on the board before they go into turn 3?
If I recall last game, they played a mech base and then they attached a snip snap. That seems unlikely. That's not what Boston's thinking. What he's thinking about is how important is it to kill this 0-2 if they have a snip snap? Because the idea there is that you would be investing damage into it now, and that's damage that you would technically just invest into it later.
Pointing Henchclan backstabbing the 1-2 means that, yeah, Snip Snap is only going to add 2 power to the board, so it's not going to be able to contest this Henchclan Thug. Makes some sense.
Yeah, I like this a lot from Boston. If a Snip Snap comes down here, its target to attack is either Henchclan, Face, or Pharaoh Cat. If it attacks the Pharaoh Cat, you have Deadly Poison. Interesting. That is a sight to behold if you're in Boston's seat right now.
Pretty dead turn for Bunnyhoppor coming up unless there's something big picked up off the top, or unless there's a shield slam found alongside this shield block.
Or something to attach to one of these mechs.
Oof. What? Snip Snap again would take care of the problem, but is it exactly Snip Snap that takes care of the problem?
I would say like Bronze Gatekeeper partially takes care of the problem.
I'm wondering, like, on sequencing here, do you go shield block to look for shield slam first and then... Well, I mean, yes,
So,
if that's going to happen, or did you go Omega Assembly first to look for a magnetic out and then shield block afterwards if you win?
Poor Boston, just his reaction to it. He's like, come on, man, like, come on! It's like it's just carrying over from last season. Like, he kept getting put into these super tough spots because his opponents, they have the goods.
I do think that's the right sequencing for Bunny to go for it, you know,
Agreed.
focusing on the technical play.
The number of mechs in Warrior and in Neutral, you find them at a ratio of 4 Warrior per 1 Neutral in terms of the discovery pool.
Yeah.
If you hit that particular minion from a Warrior pool, because you can't discover the same minion twice, it then removes that from the pool when discovering minion B, etc. So what ends up happening in that scenario is just likelihood to draw Shield Slam versus likelihood to find relevant mech. And the likelihood is far greater on the Shield Slam, even though it's only a 1 in 11.
Yeah, 1 in 11 sounds like it's a lot higher than finding exactly Snip Snap on that Omega Assembly.
I'm certain there's something I'm not considering.
Sure. I mean, yeah, Bronze Gatekeeper is like, yeah, okay, it's fine. But I think actually solving the problem of the Hench Clan was what Bunny needed to go for that turn. Because if he can solve that Hench Clan problem, his hand is pretty smooth from here on out.
Well, Bozzzton's going to have a problem to solve of his own. I think this is a Ziliax that perhaps you do not attach to a minion.
Unity. Precision.
Bunny agrees.
Deadly Poison set up to wipe out 3 health right away.
Yep.
Split it up.
Only needs the 3 attack to get through, and if it gets attacked twice, he's healing to full anyway, so the 1 missed healing on the previous turn from the 1 buffed attack is not going to be massively important, especially when 1 backstab has already been used as well from Bozzzton in the early game.
He doesn't want to play it.
Mouse is over Generous Mummy
right, you know
and laughs.
I take it back.
Correct response.
Nope, I take it back what I said earlier about Generous Mummy and demanding you apologize, because now I'm going to demand that Bozzzton apologize. It is 2-0 in Grandmasters off of Pharaoh Cat so far, and he's reluctant to play it.
Yeah. If we were using stat tracking right now, if we were just relying on it blindly, like some people will, then Generous Mummy, best card in Grandmasters.
You mean you don't blindly rely on uncontrolled sets of data from groups that don't give significant enough sample sizes to be able to make a determinative conclusion from the data that you have?
I think the Arc Thief Reform debacle made that very clear.
Arc Thief Reform did make it very entertaining, though.
It did. What a grand final it was.
Arch Villain? Yeah, Arch Villain was off.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, he is a thief, but... Oh! Oh! Huge draw from Bunnyhoppor! And Bozzzton not being able to secure the board has meant that that Myra's is not quite as good looking. He has not been able to do any damage. And he hasn't been able to get anything rolling.
Neither of the removal options really addressed the problems on the board, so...
You use your weapon, right? You slam and you weapon.
I guess. I'm just wondering if Bozzzton is just trying to find some sort of gambit with Thoughtsteel to find his way out of this. You know pretty much exactly what that gambit is.
Yeah, I don't think that works.
It doesn't very often. Your deck is not built to support Dr. Boom Mad Genius in the way that the Warrior deck is.
Interesting. There's actually not a Snip Snap in his deck, and there's no Ziliax either.
So he wants a 0-2 mech on the board and 2 damage over a card.
My guess would be that he intends to cast Myra soon then.
Yep. Still not entirely sure I agree with it.
I wonder.
There's no more pass for the mummy.
One thing I will say about Generous Mummy is that, like, it's at its best when you play a Pharaoh Cat on turn 1 and you get the Generous Mummy and you're able to then play it on turn 3. Like, playing it on turn 3 is about the only time when it's good. The later it has to come down in the game, like, it's not overstatted anymore because minions of that size are just in play in the game already, and then you're giving this huge discount to all your opponent's late game options.
Yeah,
So,
that's the true issue with the card. It's
Yeah.
only good
On turn
early
3.
with an aggressive deck.
yes.
At best. It's good at best. Like, it's never like, wow, Generous Mummy's insane here. It's always just like, it wasn't that bad. But yeah, the time for that card to make impact has, assuredly passed at this point. We're rolling into the territory where Bunnyhoppor's looking to, play our Megadillo. He's looking to play Dr. Boom Mad Genius as soon as it's drawn. 2 Wardens in the deck. We're 2 turns off of Omega Devastator being a relevant factor. It's getting in there. Let's go, Mummy! I'm rooting for Team Generous Mummy here.
I know you are.
Dang Dang it, that's a perfect draw.
Scary.
Is it a free Omega Assembly in the hand now? Some Tomb Wardens in play.
Ouch.
It's going to take so many turns for Bozzzton to even be able to get this Generous Mummy off the board now. It is doing some work in chipping through these taunts, but it's going to keep handing Bunny discounts, probably even into that turn 10 where he can get a full value Omega Assembly and discount all the mechs.
Yeah, to me, that's going to be the big issue of this game is that if it doesn't manage to make enough headway on this board, that's going to be it. But
Right.
I do think he's in a position where it's possible it does make enough headway here. Like, the 4 stat line is, like, perfect for this kind of situation where it's like if you attack it, you have to overkill it. It's going to get 2 attacks in no matter what, almost. Bigger story to me, too, is that just Boston's taken so much damage from trying to clear out this board position. He's been struggling to stabilize the whole time. And it boils down to Bunnyhoppor, shield block into shield slam on turn 4, and then in the previous turn, to hit to the one he just had, ripping that Dynamatic off the top and getting that big clear.
It kind of goes back to the point, right, of, you know, if you play Pharaoh Cat on turn 1 and you do get handed Generous Mummy, you kind of have to make this call where you say, well, I either play it now, like on turn 3, or I sit with a dead card in my hand. Like, I'm just -1 card for the rest of the game. So on that turn where the Hench Clan Thug came out, like, was it better to just take the risk and say, all right, this is a Generous Mummy game, let's see what happens?
If you want my opinion, yes.
Okay.
But if you want my opinion of how Boston played this game, no. I think that he made a very good aggressive push in that he put Bunnyhoppor in a spot where he had to absolutely have the picture-perfect card or none of this was going to work. And I think that seeing that shield slam rip off the top, you know, it put a big dent in the plan from Boston, but I think that was the play to make, and I think he just got unlucky this game. Now, that being said, we're looking at a 9-card Myras here, and that can change some stuff. Gets to generate a class card with 2 Vendettas in hand.
Again, you just look at how this lines up against the resources the Bunny has available, though.
Dragon's Roar, though.
Dragon's Roar's pretty good.
That could provide like an Alex Straza to protect himself a little bit longer.
Yeah. But yeah, if you just kind of break down the way the resources are lined up, like, yeah, Bozzzton has a nice big push here where he can gain some tempo and gain a big board state with Vendettas. Bunny has the Brawl to take care of that, and then from that point, like, what's Boston's refill? He has a couple of turns at best with like 11 health to get this over the line against 40 from Bunnyhoppor, and Bunny's just sitting on a Brawl.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I guess that is one way to interpret the words that came out of my mouth.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't think he's dead yet, but he needs a lot of fortunate outcomes here.
Right. And the potential Omega Assembly pop-off is about to come this turn as well.
I'm a bit worried about that one. Taking the damage, too. I don't know, man.
He's just banking on that Alex Straza, I'm telling you, every single time.
So taking the damage of 2 actually changes a breakpoint here as well, because with Boston at 11, he's able to take 1, 2, 3, and 4 damage, and then he would have 1 health left. With 9, he does not get that 4th tick of fatigue. Is that a
That's a Clockwork Goblin, Admiral. So Bozzzton now, actually, even if he plays the Dragon's Roar on the following turn, if he gets Alex Straza or even Nazari, he won't be able to play it before he then takes the fatigue damage and the bomb on top of that.
It is 8 damage that he takes, so he takes 1 tick of fatigue.
Oh, of course, it's only 1 this turn. Yeah, you're
and then he
absolutely
takes
right.
2, and so the bomb would make that 5. And so he has avoided that breakpoint, which that was one I hadn't considered until I saw the Clockwork Goblin, and I had to do the quick math in my head.
I must choose.
Oh, Bunnyhopper's trying to... I was about to say, is he just trying to shred this with the Snip Snap Brawl?
Look at this turn. Plague of Wrath, Omega Devastator, and a Snip Snap.
Yeah, so...
Don't call him generous for nothing, Admirable.
It's not the mummy's fault, man.
I mean, it is very literal.
No. This
no,
was the Shield Slam's fault, and this was the Dinomatic's fault, okay?
There was an Omega Assembly played that turn, and an Omega Devastator, and a Snip Snap,
That mummy,
and there's still a man.
That mummy could have hit turn 3, all right?
I'm interested in what the game looked like if it came down on turn 3 instead.
Is it generous Bozzzton or is it generous mummy? Okay.
All right.
Look, Bozzzton got unlucky this game. We're going to game 3. That's what this boils down to. I'm sorry, Bozzzton.
Looking for, not that, looking for some health stabilization, which you can get off the Reborn minions. Doesn't find it. No Witchy Lackey either, or no Spell Lackey even.
Titanic Lackey, though.
Mm-hmm.
That protects you from the Snip Snap attacks. So he's got one more turn, so he needs to cast Dragon's Roar.
He needs to cast Dragon's Roar this turn, yes, correct. Of course, he doesn't know that we're looking at a Clockwork Goblin this whole time either, which does change the clock on him. So he might feel like he doesn't have to cast Dragon's Roar this turn.
No, he daggered!
Welp. Brawl's gonna eat this up. A couple of bombs in the deck for Bunnyhoppor, but they're not really gonna have an impact on the game.
Wait, no, he can still live.
Never mind.
Oh,
cool.
dang it! I just found he can.
How did he live?
The Ember Scale Dragon. That gives you 5 armor.
Oh. If you're holding a dragon, yeah, fine. He would have got 2.
Dang it!
Yeah.
I kept finding ways for him to live. I was trying to be so generous.
I'm out of cards.
Boom. 5 damage plus the fatigue. The Clockwork Goblin ends the game. Bunnyhoppor squares up the series. Both very, very long drawn-out games so far. Played at a pace that probably Bunnyhoppor is very, very comfortable playing. Bozzzton, on the other hand, after protecting this rogue deck, does fall at the first hurdle. He does still have the availability to queue it up again if he would like.
Yeah, I do think that he's got 2 favorables across the other side of the board, though. If you take a look at what Bunnyhopper's got, he's now facing off against the Beast Hunter from Bunnyhoppor, which I actually have not seen this deck in play outside of Grandmasters, just straight up a Beast Hunter, this variant.
Right.
And it doesn't have the vicious Scale High Dire Frenzy package of the Beast Hunters from previous to Saviors of Oldham. And so what that means is Bunnyhoppor has a lot more trouble protecting himself in a matchup like that. So that's something that I fear for on Bunnyhopper's side should he choose to go with Beast Hunter. And then Reno Mage is the other deck for Bunnyhoppor in that regard. And that's something that Tempo Rogue, I feel like, that's where it's been shining its strength, is being able to develop an early board and then pressure a mage before they can get set up. There are some kickers to that because that was like Cyclone Mage territory that we're talking about, and Bozzzton doesn't have quite the same amount of burst damage packed into his. And so that was the question mark for me yesterday against Psycho, is if this deck was built with more burst damage, would it be doing a better job?
See, that was going to be my question to you is, you mentioned there's no Scale High Dire Frenzy in Bunnyhoppor's deck to be able to fight back against the Rogue. Is that even something that you need when the Rogues are being built like Bozzzton's are built with just, 1 Eviscerate, no Scimitars in there? There's very limited direct damage output. It's going to be a board fight between the 2 decks. So there's still plenty of great board tools in Bunnyhoppor's deck, like the Desert Spear, for example, coming in from the new expansion. Taking care of 3 health minions can be very, very helpful if you have those small, Spring Paws on board, Desert Spear, changing those breakpoints to be able to take care of 3 health minions and fight for the board might end up being even more important than a Vicious Scale Hide Healing Burst would be. Yeah,
my head tells me that it is a matchup that I think that Bunnyhopper's still looking to avoid. And one of the main reasons why is some of your big payoffs for Hunter, like Hyena Alpha. What ends up happening is that's where Rogue can take advantage of situations like that, where if you're trying to land a Hyena Alpha with a secret in play, what that means is, A, you had to draw one of your 3 secrets that's packed into Bunnyhopper's deck. 4 secrets that are in here. It has to not have been activated, and then you have to have your opponent not have tempo plays against that Hyena Alpha. And the early slew of minions, like that's where Rogue is shining in its ability to play for tempo. If it tries to go a piece-for-piece game, that's kind of where it starts to gas out and nothing really happens again. So I just feel like over time that chip damage continues to build up, and Bunnyhoppor finds himself in a really tough spot with his Hunter deck because he just has no way to protect his life total outside his Zul'jin.
So you would expect, from saying that Bozzzton has a couple of favorables, that he would stay on that Rogue deck. Does that enter into Bunnyhoppor's thinking in any way?
I mean, I assume Bunnyhopper's anticipating that he plays Rogue in this spot. Yeah. It's the deck that was protected. It's the deck that just ran into the bad matchup, I would say, that's on Bunnyhopper's side. And that would be the reason why he had protected this Rogue deck, in anticipation of not always being able to beat a warrior, but then having 2 favorables lined up on both of Bunnyhoppor's remaining decks that were there.
You see, once again, the warrior was protected, picked up a victory for Bunnyhoppor. It was the battle of the protected decks in the previous game with the warrior coming out on top. Bozzzton's put a lot of stock in this kind of Vendetta package tempo rogue, and so far it has looked a little bit lacking, just short of the damage, short of the teeth that it needs to get over the line.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the other deck that Bozzzton has, it's Bomb Warrior, right? Bomb Warrior is going to do well, I think, against what Bunnyhoppor has, but not as good as the Rogue. And I think that Bomb Warrior is, arguably not favored versus Mage at times. Like, the matchup, I think, is going to come down so much more to how Bunnyhoppor draws than how you actually do anything.
Right.
In that regard. And so we got word that Bozzzton is going to be going with Rogue and that Bunnyhoppor is going with Mage in this situation. And I think that the call from Bunnyhoppor is right because there's less burst damage in Bozzzton's deck.
Yep.
The Hunter deck is never looking to snowball that board position and win by Bozzzton gassing out. Bozzzton's just not going to gas out versus this Hunter deck, I don't think.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that call as well. I think we've seen how resilient Reno Mage can be in a lot of these situations, especially against a deck that just tries to build board and doesn't really have the teeth in terms of burst damage. I think burst damage is one of the things that this deck is potentially weak to. But when you have cards like Reno the Relicologist in your deck, alongside Blizzard's Flame Strikes, everything else, Zephyrus being able to pick you up early answers if you need them, or late answers even if you need them, and then of course Frostnova Doomsayer combinations, like you can answer a lot of boards with this deck if you find the right removal.
That's the key, though, is the consistency to that. That's what Boston's looking to punish. Now, given Boston's track record, opponent not having the right early tools, that's something he hasn't really run into yet. Like, I don't feel like Boston's had an opportunity to let his deck building shine in so many scenarios.
Okay, surely not again. We saw it twice in a row from Silvername. We've seen it once from Bozzzton. Turn 1 Pharaoh Cat into Generous Mummy. Surely it cannot happen again.
My issue is if it does happen, I don't think Boston's going to play it until later in the game.
Choose soon.
Bozzzton already mousing over the Myras to the far left of his hand, considering like what that means for his curve.
Hey!
That's not bad. Fits the curve pretty nicely. It's also very nice and cheap, which means it can get out of that hand quickly if Bozzzton does want to curve towards very fast Myras this game.
I think that's the good one.
It's a real good one, yeah. It's one of the stronger 2-drops introduced in the set.
What to do? What to do?
Bunny just doing the due diligence here,
Runs out on me.
as Bunny does. I don't think anything except ping the 1-2 was ever going to happen that turn.
I don't Frostbolt this, right? No.
Second Pharaoh Cat shows up. Excuse me, first Pharaoh Cat, you functioned incorrectly. Your opponent does not have a... your owner does not have a Generous Mummy in his hand right now.
I wonder.
Let me show you how to do this.
I feel like Pharaoh Cat's one of those cards that should say you can play any number of Pharaoh Cats in your deck. It just feels like one of those cards. Like, it's like Web Spinner, like the Tavern Brawls where it's just all Web Spinners and stuff.
Yeah.
That feels like that's a Pharaoh Cat thing waiting to happen. Everything on Bunnyhopper's side able to be checked adequately. Held on to the Arcane Keysmith in the open. I found that quite interesting from Bunnyhoppor.
What to do?
I'm kind of on board with it.
To do.
I think it's a very reasonable card in the matchup. A lot of the secrets can be very disruptive. I think just the weight of numbers of Mage secrets can really stack up on a deck like Rogue, where they have to pay respect for multiple different things that you don't pick as well as the one that you do. And there honestly isn't like a huge amount of early game that you're going to mulligan for in this deck anyway.
What to do? What to do? The future is ours.
Bunny just sufficing to soak some damage with this Luna. I don't think he has any real illusions that it's going to stay alive here. Backstab being picked up for Bozzzton makes life all the much easier for him.
Yeah, I'm curious about this backstab. on this turn, actually.
So many options.
I'm actually in favor of not using this backstab right now.
I can see that. It's a useful tool for later on.
Yeah, I want to see Bozzzton
I
attempt to go something different this turn. If you're going to backstab, though, it makes the most sense with the Temple Berserker. Oh, I thought he was rushing in. Excuse me. Interesting. I didn't consider this particularly.
That backstab usage could now end up getting him into a little bit of trouble if Counterspell comes down from this Arcane Keysmith. Counterspell isn't necessarily going to be the go-to choice for Bunnyhoppor, though, because, again, he's not looking at a face-up copy of Myra's Unstable Element on the other side of the board.
So there's two things that the Temple Berserker being preserved would account for here. I think number one is in the face of Doomsayer. You have the option of perhaps letting the Doomsayer go, and then number two is in the event of Arcane Keysmith and finding a Flame Ward, you at least have a minion that will stick around in that position.
Right.
Bone Wraith was the card that was sticking out to me that Bozzzton would want to be strong against as one of Bunnyhoppor's major points of defense. But there's also something to be said about the fact that it's a Reno Mage deck. Like, playing around one-ofs is difficult. Is the formula just simpler? More stuff now.
Yeah, that's the problem that you run into when you play against Highlander decks, is that a lot of the time you will have conditioned yourself, if you played a lot of Hearthstone, especially in like open deck list competitive formats. Oh, he's playing this as a one-off in his deck. I'm not going to play around that one-off. Forget about it. If he has it, he has it. You can't. You essentially can't have that mentality against a Highlander deck, because the extension of that is that you play around nothing for the entire game because they only have one copy of everything. But they have to have some of them. They have to draw some cards and be able to play them. So it can be a very difficult balancing act in terms of how you engineer just playing through all of those 30 different options that your opponent has. You see there, Arcane Keysmith, the big reason why it is such a powerful card. I talked about 3/3 minions being such a prevalent factor in Rogue, and you can see there Flame Ward just being a very, very big deal. You can pick that off early from Arcane Keysmith.
Not such a huge deal here, though. I mean, it definitely provided some defense if he wanted it, but I think the Ice Barrier call here was the right call from Bunnyhoppor. Just the extra health is worth a lot more than trying to clear off the board.
Yeah, for sure. In that scenario, Ice Barrier was fantastic. Like, from a top-down perspective, while you're... From a top-down perspective, when you begin the matchup, one thing that you know is that your opponent is going to get Generous Mummy off their Pharaoh Cat, but the other thing you know is that they will quite often generate a board of 3/3 minions, of Blink Foxes, of 4/3s even with Henchclan Burglar. So just having that option, just the flexibility of saying, hey, Flame Ward or Ice Barrier are both pretty great in that spot, and makes Arcane Keysmith a decent keep.
It's so hard to not just stare at the Generous Mummy right now.
I know. I told you, dude, that second Pharaoh Cat just turned up like a supervisor. Like, the first one just was not functioning correctly. And the second Pharaoh Cat comes out like, oh, God, Steve, how many times have I shown you how to do this? Do I have to show you again? Boom, there you go, Generous Mummy. That's how you work.
Now get out of here, Steve.
Why is the Pharaoh Cat called Steve? Why was that the name?
Out on me. What to do? What to do?
5 mana Yeti.
It's got a nice pretty border, though.
Yeah, it's worth one extra.
And listen to it come into play. I mean, my gosh.
I wonder.
Bunny is just a little bit lacking right now in terms of ways to fight back against this. Just the spread of, you know, kind of zoo-like board of Bozzzton means his only real removal options in hand, the Frostbolt and the Voodoo Doll, they just don't do enough on a per-turn basis to really be worth playing. And I know that's something that you've talked about multiple times, is just having minions that are individually so bad that your opponent doesn't want to kill them, and therefore they add up into dealing a lot of damage.
Inferior minion theory.
Yeah. Again, mouse over the Generous Mummy, make a face.
Yeah.
the correct response.
So many options. Share the wealth.
Look at Bunnyhoppor's face.
Trades? Trades.
What? I don't know about that one.
Ooh, well then.
Can he cast that this turn?
Yes.
I don't think you have that liberty.
It costs 4. He has 6. He can cast it.
I mean, you can, like you're able to. I'm talking
He has
about
a
his
Frostbolt. Like a Frostbolt means that the damage he takes next turn based on the board that he sees presented is 5. He's at 28. I mean, he can even just take the additional 5 and play a Voodoo Doll alongside it instead. So at least then he's dealing with the Generous Mummy over a couple of turns. I think it's playable. I don't know if it's better than Siamat this turn, but I think it's playable.
You know, that's an interesting point to me as well, is that is Siamat playable this turn? Like, it's not really doing anything. The Generous Mummy, like, you're not getting rid of it if you play Siamat. You're not getting rid of it if you play Luna's Pocket Galaxy. So Luna's Pocket Galaxy Frostbolt is the most defense you buy against it. You're actually, I think you're pigeonholed into having to play the Luna's Pocket Galaxy. And now Bunnyhopper's head's exploding because the Frostbolt's not mana efficient. And the Voodoo Doll's, it's targeting
Voodoo Dolling the
an
1/4
evil
now.
miscreant.
Interesting.
And Bozzzton just picked up a second South Sea deckhand, and I think he's rearing and ready to go. It's about giddy up time. Generous Mummy connects.
So why does the Voodoo Doll land on the 1/4?
Because it doesn't clear off the other things, perhaps? Like, Bunnyhoppor has to be thinking way down the road of, like, I don't know how I win this game. It's staving off as much damage as I can. I'm not staving off the damage from the Generous Mummy. This is why I was in favor of the Frostbolt, but he's looking at the Siamat Frostbolt turn next turn.
Right.
Oh, so that would be what it was. He's hoping that Bozzzton leaves this there in favor of a damage, and then he gets to Frostbolt the Generous Mummy, attack it, and get the Siamat. I'm sorry, not Frostbolt Generous Mummy. Siamat the Generous Mummy.
Siamat the Generous, yeah. I knew what you meant.
Yeah, and it's giddy up time.
Choose soon.
He's a Generous Mummy. Have some mana. Take 5.
The 1 being pushed here from Bozzzton as well. Bunnyhoppor needs defense as fast as possible. And now life just got interesting. The Frostbolt Polymorph ping. There's only then, what, 4, 6, 7, 8 being represented next turn, including the dagger. It's going to go Siamat line.
Wants the Mummy to stay put.
The Mummy stays put. He has Alex on 8, Box on 9 available. Could potentially dig him out of just about any situation. Goes into a 2-1 instead of a 1-2. The 1-2, going into the 1-2 there can potentially demand that the damage gets sent back into it anyway, so you end up taking kind of similar amount off board, but it does leave that 1 extra damage on board immediately that can end up killing you.
I want to see Bozzzton full develop here. Doesn't spend his mana super efficiently, but this is a lot of extra pressure you get. The Mummy's still there with Reborn.
Yep. Rips the Myras.
Wow. I think Bunny is super dead.
Yeah, Waggle Pick and a Vist picked up.
Dude, I'm not even joking. He just literally could not answer the Mummy. Like, that Mummy's about to deal 10 damage again. Unless it gets polyed, in which case Bunnyhoppor's just dead. And he's dead.
He's dead.
Generous Mummy, 3-1. Bozzzton able to
You win.
get some aggression moving and punishes Bunnyhoppor for not being able to answer it and finds himself with a 1-1 score in week 1 of Grandmasters, taking down a very formidable opponent in this one. And I want to talk about Bozzzton's pre-planned out process in this too, with protecting the rogue, with the way that he had set up with the explosive trap as a bluff, and then seeing at the end where in game 3 he has 2 favorable matchups lined up for him with that rogue deck at the end. That is just great planning and getting the payoff for doing such work.
Yeah, again, well, as we get through further weeks and we start to dig deeper into the format, it'll be interesting to see how things like that start to develop and start to play out. It's definitely a huge win for Bozzzton, to pick up, because both of these players now start off their week 1 with a 1-1 match score record overall. If Bozzzton goes down to 0-2, suddenly he's looking like it's a very, very big struggle to improve on his record from last week already just after week 1. That's not a spot that you want to be in. Of course, Bozzzton, proud competitor, wants to do as well as he possibly can.
Indeed, and Bozzzton sounds like he's ready for an interview. Bozzzton, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Hi.
Congratulations on your win here in this match. This was, I think, a pretty impressive series for you overall. So I'm going to lead you off with a question I've been kicking everybody. Your thoughts on the changes coming into Grandmasters Season 2. What do you like and what do you don't?
I really like the changes. Just changes in general feels good, but so far I like the format. It's still best of 3, which is so-so, but I think the format is very deep, and I think there's so many small adjustments you can do and so many ways you can go in and shield and ban phase. Like, even if you have one lineup, it can totally change depending on what your opponent's lineup is and what you think they will do, because it's so many mind games. If he does this, I want to do this, and so it just goes back and forth the whole time.
Yeah, so I want to follow up on that, actually, because you protected your rogue in this series, which is not something that we've been seeing too much from other players. Then you ended up in a position where your rogue, when we got down to that 3rd game, your rogue was positioned in a pretty nice spot against what Bunnyhoppor had left. Like, was that something that you'd planned out long-term in the pick and ban phase?
Yes, for sure. There is, like, in this specific matchup, there was, like, two variables everywhere, pretty much. So I could go either way. I could protect my mage from the beginning, and there was just a lot of ways to go, and also what to ban from him, because there's so many interactions that go, like, even if I shielded my rogue, I was planning on not playing it, because there's so many mind games that he thinks that I would play my rogue, so it goes super deep. It's actually, I really like it. So, but there is a bit of RNG in the queuing as well.
Well, I mean, that's just Hearthstone in general. That's just every guessing game in general, I guess. I want to talk to you about your preparation this week, because you landed on Tempo Rogue, which not a lot of players did. And I just wanted to ask about, exploring the set in general. How did you get to this lineup, and were there any decks that you wanted to play that just you couldn't bring this week, couldn't find a strategy for them?
First week, so I wanted to go pretty safe, play decks that I know well and just know it's good. So, because I don't think no one has really actually like exactly how the format's gonna work and it's figured out. So I want to play just good decks, and then I text it against what I think is gonna be the meta. For example, my rogue is like double Henchland Tag and Bear Dragon, because I knew like everyone would play mage. So I just want to have that good, and I think it's also better against warrior now. You saw against warrior, like if you get the 1-2-3 curve against warrior, you can actually like beat them down just pretty quickly. You saw the tag. If he top decked the shield slam, right? Otherwise he didn't have an answer for my tag. And if he does have that answer, it's just like runs away with the game instantly.
So
because
before
the 3-2 rush doesn't deal with tag very well. It just creates 1-for-1, which usually benefits the rogue.
Right. So, but before we let you go, I want to ask you a question. As the player who last season said that Luna's Pocket Galaxy wasn't good enough to include in Mage, you must be pretty surprised that it's getting nerfed now.
A lot of people have told me this, but I'm still correct, because it's not in Reno Mage. It's insanely good in Reno Mage, but in Conjurer's Mage, in the meta that we had, it wasn't too good, because against Rogue, it was too slow in Conjurer's Mage, because you only have the 3 minions, which isn't, they don't have Battle Cry. When you pair them with Caligos and all the guys that have Battle Cry, that's when it becomes insane. So in Reno Mage, I wouldn't be surprised if it still sees plays at 7 mana in Green Mage, because that's a total different deck. So
Actually,
but
one more thing as well.
I'm glad it's getting there.
I'm sure you are. Before we do let you go, your thoughts on Generous Mummy, if you please.
He keeps coming up, but I don't think he's as bad as people maybe predicted. Because I heard some card reviews said it was like the worst card ever printed in Hearthstone, which I don't think is necessarily, because some decks can't really utilize the 1 extra mana sometimes. But I mean, it never feels good to be playing, but the reborn effect on a 5 attack minion is pretty strong.
I myself included was one of those people that called it one of the worst cards ever. And right now I got a 3-1 record when it's played in Grandmasters. And the first time someone ever played that card against me, I looked down and I went, wow, you know, that card's actually not that bad. I'm going to die. But Bozzzton, congratulations on your win here this week. You've also had a fantastic record versus Luna's Pocket Galaxy, so I think some justification to your statement, although, let's be real, it's Luna's Pocket Galaxy. But congratulations on your win. I think this is really crucial, and I've been very impressed with you so far this week. So looking forward to seeing you play next week.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice evening.
You too.
I just kept going. And another thing. And another thing.
Not as bad. Did you hear that?
I did, yeah.
I want you to apologize to Generous Mummy right now.
The guy that said that Luna's Pocket Galaxy isn't good enough to be in Mage agrees with you? Is that your point?
No, my point is I want you to apologize to Generous Mummy. 3-1 record, scoreboard.
I refuse.
All right, you have the right to refuse. I just want you to know that you're wrong. All right, we'll wait. At the end of the season, Generous Mummy will have a positive win rate.
Okay.
Guaranteed. So that's our first match in the books.